Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, the voice of bodybuilding. And today we are here for a solo episode. Now, you will see by the title that I'm going to be talking about 10 of the big things I have learned as a competitor. And hopefully, I will resonate with you guys. I understand, as you do, if you already listened to the podcast, that I'm in your ears. And for sure, when you're listening to someone talking about something and it's something you're interested in, it's something you're part of, it can have a big impact. And that is why it's always my priority to essentially work at empowering and educating you guys, but through resonation also, because this is an extremely useful tool. Now, we know as competitors that this is very much at times a solo endeavor. And when you're in a prep, when you're in an off season, we're asking a hell of a lot of ourselves in all of the phases. And it can feel like you're on this solo pursuit. And when you do listen to a podcast, or perhaps you hook up with different people in the bodybuilding space, you make friends on social media and things like this, it often helps to feel like there's others that are part of your journey. And then it becomes, although very solo, becomes even more enjoyable when you are sharing your journey with other people. However, of course, some of us prefer to stay in our own lane, and it is very much a solo path. And what I want to start by saying today is that whatever bodybuilding means to you, whatever competing brings you, that is unique to yourself. And although those around us, our coach, our support network, they will understand to a certain degree what you're doing day to day, what your journey involves, and everything that you're ticking off from those tick boxes, everything you're pouring into bodybuilding. You in your head, nobody lives inside your head. Nobody truly knows what you are pouring into this every single day. Even when we are facing challenging times, if you are in this realm and you really are looking to facilitate progression throughout, even during those hard times, we are still looking to do what we can to contribute to our physique development journey. And we are still in our minds, sometimes subconsciously, and of course, consciously, ticking those boxes. So remember, guys, everything you're doing to be the best bodybuilder you can, that is self-development, that's self-fulfillment. And for sure, at times, we can forget how much we're actually putting into our bodybuilding day to day. And it is certainly a chance for me to remind you of what you truly are pouring into this. And it's not something really, when you are looking to facilitate progression throughout, that you can do half-assed. Yes, for sure, there's different versions of bodybuilding. You may meet people that do less than you and they still rock a sick physique, but that doesn't take away from what you are doing. And generally speaking, everyone that is pursuing this is putting work in. And it may be that someone has done it for a number of years and you're just starting out, as an example. And when you then compare what you're having to do in a prep scenario compared to someone that's maybe further down the line, could be completely different. But again, it goes back to, this is your individual unique journey, and everything you're doing towards that, it's super important to remember that there is a very small percentage of people doing this. And I know I say this on the podcast, but there is, and there's a reason for that. All you've got to do is sit in a cafe or a restaurant and look around. And a lot of the times you could then reflect on yourself and go, okay, I'm in pretty good shape here. And people aren't aware, you know? And there has been times in that example where I have sat in a cafe or a restaurant and I thought, I wonder what it would be like to not look at a plate and know what protein, carbs, and fat are in that meal, or have a rough idea. and have that matrix in my mind calculating the calories and the macros, what would it be like to just not have tick boxes? Would I ever want to be able to do that? And my answer is no, because I already know what I know. And two, I don't want to be normal. I don't want to be general population. I want to thrive and I want to be productive and I want to live with purpose. And a very, very good example of this for myself was when we first went over to Thailand. And I feel like this story will be a good way to set off this podcast today. And then I'm going to be running through the 10 things, the pivotal things that I've learned as a competitor. So when we went over to Thailand, of course, exciting venture, a lot went into that. I'm sure you will appreciate if you've ever moved country, or I'm sure you could have a good idea into what that would involve. You know, it is a hell of a lot on the allostatic load leading up to that, then the flight, then setting up your new life the other side. However, for me, it was certainly an opportunity to see what it would be like to live in a different country. Of course, I love the heat, and I just wanted to experience a new environment. And it brought me a hell of a lot going away. And it's hard to put into words what that brought me. But back to the example that I was going through there. When we first arrived, I had a massive physique kickback. So with the load of stress beforehand, I still trained and did everything I would as a bodybuilder. We then had the flight, and as you do, or as some of us will do, I never, of course, want to just say that everyone does this, but around a flight, there's things in place that can manage things like water retention, what foods to have while you're traveling, etc., etc. So everything went as well as it could be. And we arrived in Thailand. And this physique kickback was wild. Now, of course, the humidity and the change there, that can bring this water retention, this physique kickback. I was eating the same. I was still looking at everything, you know, even though I was in a different country, I'm still hitting my protein, fat, carbs, hitting my fiber. It wasn't actually that different to what we would do in the UK per se, because I could still have a very nice varied diet. Training was back in, everything was all good. Then I started to have treatment for a chronic back pain from a car crash that I was in when I was 17. Now, this unearthed, essentially, it almost felt like I'd had the car crash again, right? So when we're looking at everything that happened in that acute period, moving country, changing humidity, a lot of stress to manage, the flight, and then getting back into training, etc., eating as I would, but then going into having this intense treatment for my chronic back condition. Bearing in mind, I'm 35 now. I've had this condition since I was 17, and it is a degenerative disc condition. So it's not something necessarily I can, you know, do much about per se. It's very much a managing my back pain and accepting that it's a thing. So this treatment, and as I spoke about it on a podcast already and on my social media, this course of treatment, very intense, but very, very effective. And I've had some big steps forward with my day-to-day pain. So when all of this was happening all around the same time, my physique just blew out. And I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I just put on 3 or 4 kilos literally, and it was like I felt like a balloon. My face was swollen. I just felt terrible, and it was hard, so hard, because bodybuilding is my whole life. I absolutely love bodybuilding. If you haven't picked that up already, it's me, right? However, during that time, my identity of being a bodybuilder was compromised. And that is often where we will see that things become difficult when we do get to points where something comes up in life and our normal bodybuilding is affected. And I had a period of time when I was having the treatment where I needed to step back from the gym because everything I did in the gym aggravated it. and I needed to stop being a dickhead and listen to my body, which again is something some of us can struggle to do. So I had a period of time away from training. I was doing some swimming, some steps, and it was all low key. I needed to manage my stress. I needed to get the fluid balance back, and I needed to have this treatment. And for the first time in my life, properly put recovery and rest at the top of my priority list. And I say that because it's taken me a long while to understand that in myself. When I work with clients, it's a big talking point, and it's something we will monitor all the time. But within me, I'm very used to having this pain, and we're talking, 17 years of having this every day. It was then a reflection I had that I needed to be able to actualize how much pain I was in, and that was something that was very hard for me. So stepping away from the gym, hard in itself. However, when you are inundated with pain and the treatment is a big priority, and it may be that this could help, that this could give me a lifeline, I've got to do what's right. So having that period of time away from training, it unearthed that I have a love for swimming, which I've had for quite some time. It is, for me, it's almost like freedom, right? It's like when you go for a run, you just feel free, and it's non-weight bearing, very easy on the joints. Felt nice on my back to do some movement, because for me, if I don't do anything, that's worse. However, I couldn't train in the gym. So I'm getting into my rhythm with that, and I'm thinking, okay, I quite like this. Like at the moment, after that initial, okay, I can't train at the moment, I was like, I actually feel all right not training right now. And it was a really weird thought process, because I never thought that would even enter my mind, because bodybuilding, like I say, is literally my life. So I'm sat with these thoughts and feelings. I've got the physique kickback, I've got the pain, I've got the treatment, I'm doing different exercise, and I'm thinking, am I going to continue bodybuilding? And that did go through my mind, and it's not something I've really spoken about per se. If I speak to people about it, my close ones, of course that's a thing. However, it's not something I've certainly advertised, as it were. And this is an opportunity for me to talk about it, because it was a point in my life where I thought, will I continue to do bodybuilding and continue to do those daily tick boxes and what bodybuilding asks from us as individuals? It is, like I say, it's not something, generally speaking, you can half-ass. When you're in any phase, you are obsessed with progression, whether that is getting leaner, whether that is growing more muscle, it takes over, and it is a constant thought. And I had this like, can I let go of those constant thoughts, and could I just lead a healthy lifestyle? Could I just be, not quite gen pop, however, just a normal person that does a bit of exercise, does some swimming, does some steps, eats well. And for, must have been a week or two, I was thinking, I think this is it. Like I don't know, if I will do the bodybuilding, the full-on bodybuilding again. I love training my clients, I love coaching my clients, I get a lot from that. I love watching shows, I love looking at it on social media, I like looking at people's physiques when I'm walking around. If anyone else does that, please tell me. I can't help but literally look at people and think, wow, that would be a good wellness competitor. That would be a good. Anyway, I digress. But I just didn't know if I had it in me to continue, because unearthing that pain again, being in a new country, everything that led to that, and then the thought of even going in the gym because of the pain scared the shit out of me. Then the thought of hitting a step target, doing all of the things we need to do as bodybuilders, it is a lot, as I say, to ask on a daily basis. And I just didn't know if I had it in me to do it anymore. I didn't know if the lower steps that I was doing, the swimming, would be enough and I would move forward. However, I had a big breakthrough with my treatments, and the pain pretty much I had pain-free days. It pretty much expired I had a run of 17 days. And obviously I'm back in the UK now, so I can't have that treatment anymore. And I do still suffer with back pain. Obviously I had the surgery on my knee also. And there's lots of changes and adaptations I've had to make. But what I found once I'd had almost like, and those of you that have had major surgery or chronic pain will perhaps relate here. It was almost like I had to relive the trauma of the car crash to then find a better spot. And this is very appropriate for a healing process. So back in the day, when I first started out, I did a degree in sports massage, and this is something, it's called a healing crisis. So many of the people that I would treat would have this. You'd have a treatment and you'd feel potentially worse, and that could last for an elongated period of time, and then the client will feel better. So I'm having this in real time. So when I then started to feel better, it was like coming out of the darkness into light and realizing I have still got it fucking in me, and I am not giving up my bodybuilding. It is me, and there is absolutely no way I'm stopping, because it is me. But what's important here, guys, is sometimes things might happen that question bodybuilding for you, and that is okay. It's okay to feel like, is this the right path for me? Should I be pursuing this? And it's important to remember, and I often forget this in myself, we are human. We are doing things that are truly, truly phenomenal, pushing and pulling our body weight, looking to continue that progression, all of the things that go on a day-to-day basis. This is an endless pursuit, and I fucking love it. And I had this shift, and I said to Matt, because we've been having talks, and I was like, I don't know if I have it in me anymore. And I said to him, I'm back. It's, I know I've spoken about, because if you know me, you'll know if I say something, if I say words, I mean them. I don't just talk words and there's no actions. And I was under this sort of like, I've told Matt that I might step away and we maybe have more time together, etc., etc. And I said to him, you knew from the start, right? Bodybuilding's my thing. And yes, that time was hard. However, it has realigned just how much passion I have for bodybuilding. I live and breathe bodybuilding. From the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, all I'm thinking about is my clients. Are they feeling in a spot where they feel supported? Do they have everything they need to facilitate progression? Can they come to me with anything and everything? I love my own bodybuilding, my physique progression. Albeit right now, it's building up from knee surgery, but I am still looking to progress other areas of my physique. I love, as I said, going to shows, looking at physiques. It's all I think about. I'm educating myself. I'm just doing anything and everything to do with bodybuilding. And that is me. But what it did was solidify. Why am I doing this? And this is a moment for you guys listening to just listen and take this question in. Why are you bodybuilding? Why are you competing? Is it important to you? And what is the reason it is important to you? Now, this, again, like I said at the start, is completely individual to you. Nobody has the right to question why or what you're doing this for, because it's your pursuit and your journey. However, I'm going to lead this into point one on my 10 things I've learned as a competitor. And this was a post I did on social media, and it sparked an idea for me to record this today. So the first one is, win, place, or lose, you are still the same person. Now, this will come up and you'll hear this on Wednesday's episode with Aaron. And we spoke about this, and I've spoken about it on the podcast before. You are genuinely the same person. And what Aaron and I both experienced was, when you get your pro card, when you lift that winning trophy, you potentially think that that is going to complete your life and change everything. However, we both agreed that we woke up the next day the same person. So everything else that is going on in your life is still very much there. Now, that does not take away from what it can give you, but it's more to highlight who are you as a person, because if you win, if you lose, if you place, that can have an impact on if you know who you are outside of bodybuilding. Because that example of lifting the winning trophy and feeling exactly the same, you get that moment of like, fuck, I've done it. You know, nothing compares to the first time you win a competition. And I will stand by that, because the first time I lifted a winning trophy, whoa, 5 years of bodybuilding literally hit me like a ton of bricks, and I fell to the floor on the stage. And it was a moment of just everything I poured into it, that I was good enough to lift that winning trophy. That is for sure one of the life-changing moments for a multitude of reasons, but also moments of clarity. So when you win, like I say, it can bring you a hell of a lot. So it brought me that feeling of, this is a thing. I can actually do this. I can do this and I can win. I went into that season and that prep telling myself, if I don't gain success, even a top 3 placing in this season, I am not cut out for this sport. And sometimes we need to be ruthless if we're doing this for multiple seasons. And that there was a lot riding on that. I also realized that my support network, when around that competition, that was very, very important for me. The ones that I could lean on when I came out of that show. So that highlighted how important support is, mainly from my mum, my stepdad, and my coach, and of course, my close friends. And I don't have loads of close friends. I just don't, the relationships I have, my people, the close ones, that's important, because you can go to them with anything and they will never judge you, and you actually want to go to them with things. So the reason I say it is a small circle is you may feel the same, right? You have friends, you have acquaintances, and then you have those ride or dies, and they're often the ones that can support you around a competition. It also helped me to realize that I will remain humble on this journey. I'm not that way inclined to be a dickhead, when we're on stage and then I've come second, it's not my vibe to not be a good sportsman. And I realized that so much. I wanted to spend that moment with the other competitors, seeing my parents in the audience and celebrating as a whole. Yes, it is your moment when you win a competition, but for me personally, I liked to include the other competitors on stage and share that moment with them. It also helped me gain confidence towards one day starting this podcast. So many, many highlights from what that brought. However, the next day, as I said, I felt exactly the same person. So I'm still the same human being, and I have these emotions and these validations that were there, but I was still stuck in a marriage I was incredibly unhappy with. I still was very, very unhappy in my personal life. And you can almost see it now, because I can see it. Lifting that trophy and being on that stage at your moment of your pinnacle. Anything and everything disappears for those moments. But the reason it's that win, place, or lose, you're still the same person, is the next day you still have all the other stuff if you haven't dealt with it. And that's super important. So then when we go round to the flip side of this, if we lose, now there's going to be different athletes, there's going to be different mentalities. For me personally, all it does is motivate me more to continue progressing. Now, understand that could be like, yeah, whatever. But it's true, guys. Like, for me, competition is me versus me. If I look better when I step on stage, right now I can honestly say to you, yes, I go in to win. absolutely no doubt. But it does not take away from what I've poured into a prep when I step on stage if I do not win. And that has been an important lesson for me. Once you win one show, right, you want to win them all, because there's nothing quite like that feeling. However, as I progressed from winning my first competition, then to come second, that gave me that humbleness continued, and that gave me that moment of, right, I'm not going to win every show, but then I won, and then I won, and then I won. And then it's like, okay, I'm getting used to this. This is fucking cool. Like, I never thought I'd even win. Well, I don't know, maybe I did, but what I was going to say there was I never thought I'd win a show, and I didn't for a lot of years, right? But once you start winning, you get more of a self-confidence and self-worth, and you think, maybe I can continue to win. And the lineups were getting more competitive. There was more competitors, and I'm thinking, I'm winning these shows. This is fucking amazing. And you're on a roll, right? And it's when you get into this realm of competing and you do win shows, for sure it feels good, guys. Like, there's nothing that takes away from that. But what then happens if you don't place at a show? And it's important for yourself to continue reminding yourself that it is subjective, and it's also a lot of moving parts around what your physique looks like on stage. Because with everything even being in that optimal setting, things can still happen, guys. A lot of things can happen. You got to realize you're manipulating your body, and your mind is probably, I won't say definitely, but I'm going to assume, because it is more than likely in a prep, your mind is compromised. You're in a deficit for a long period of time. You're then filling up, you're peaking. There's a lot of things going on physiologically, and that contributes to how you feel mentally. So all of these things that are happening play a part. And that's super important, because if you don't get a placing, it doesn't mean you haven't nailed your prep. It could be something else that has contributed to, when you step on stage, how your physique presents. So if everything is riding on you winning and you don't, what then happens? We can end up in all realms of turmoil, because we are questioning ourselves, we are questioning our worth, we are questioning our path. Could I have done more? Should I have done less? Are the people that won better than me? Are they better people or humans? Do the judges not like me? All of these things can happen. And where does that lead you when you enter your post-show period? And that, for sure, again, is a very unique and individual spot to be in for yourself. And I can tell you, it's different for us all. But you still get inundated with physiological changes and adaptations. What happens as you start reversing out? That happens to all of us. Win, place, or lose, we all have this adaptation occur as we move through and away from competition and stage lead. So the main focus from that standpoint for point number one is that, for sure, trying to understand why you're doing this. Remaining humble, for me personally, is super important. It may not be for you, but it is for me. And taking it for what it is, although you're going to feel like potentially that you've poured your whole life into this for months and months and months. Like I say, guys, at the start, nobody lives in your head, and nobody truly feels what you're pouring into this. And ideally, if you're working with a coach, and it's something I speak with my clients about, if someone's looking to win a competition or beat their physique, or they want to get a top 3 placing, or the list goes on, to be fair, there's moving parts, there's different judges, there's subjectivity. All we can do is look to bring an athlete, or bring ourselves into a position where we've facilitated progression, and we've enabled ourselves to commit to that to bring our best physique to stage. Because as I've already said, you never 100% know. We are dealing with a body and we don't always know bang on what will happen physiologically if there is mental stress occurring. And there's so much mindset work that goes into this, because depending on where the athlete is at, that plays a huge part. I know athletes that have been in a very, very bad spot mentally, and they've stuck to their plan, but their physique did not present on stage. So this is what I mean by moving parts, right? And a coach can give you a plan for sure. And hopefully your coach can work with you to talk about stress and recovery management and mindset work, understanding why you are doing this and what your expectations are, and having a conversation. However, it's you that has the internal thoughts. And if there is something of a high magnitude of stress or anxiety, that can completely conflict from what your plan is leading you to for that show day. So it is important, and that's why it's point number one. Because who are you as a person? If all of your bodybuilding was removed, who are you? Who are you as a person? And that's a question only you, of course, can answer. Now, point number two. I've got my list here for those that are watching, and those that are listening now know I have my list. Bodybuilding is a subjective sport. The judge's decision is final. Now, I touched on that a tiny bit already. So I said about it is subjective, and it is. There's no getting away from it, guys. And more recently on the pod, and you'll pick this up more so, a lot of the guests are like, it's a pretty wild sport because you never really know if you're going to win, right? And I'm sure many of you have seen it. Sometimes there is changes to what the judges are looking for. There's different judging panels, and maybe you thought someone was going to get the winning spot and actually they didn't. Maybe they didn't even place. This can happen for sure. You know, I've been in audiences where the audience has gone wild because the winner that everyone thought was going to win did not. And subjectivity is sometimes a bitter pill to swallow, but certainly in myself, what I knew from the very start was that I'm doing it for myself, and I can only present my physique at the best possible opportunity by doing everything I'm told and doing everything that I can to bring that best physique to the stage, but it may not be what the judges want on that day. And that level of acceptance helps take the edge off. Because what do we want to see when you step on stage? And I can talk from a judging standpoint, having judged with multiple federations. The athletes that step on stage and they look like they want to be there, they own their time on stage, they have a sick physique, they know how to pose, they have posing fitness, they attract the judge's eye completely differently to if someone steps on stage and they look like they hate every minute. Now, of course, it's a physique-based sport, so we're reading the physiques. However, in some of the categories, like bikini, up to 50% of your marks are hair, makeup, and that appearance from your hair and makeup. So if your federation is awarding that much of a percentage on how you present from an aesthetic standpoint in regards to hair, makeup, looking like you're a bikini girl, if you walk on stage and you do not look like you want to be there, that will give off a certain energy to the judges. Now, again, every judging panel is different, and it may be that you go and watch shows or you compete yourself, and actually still people that don't necessarily present what I was just talking about might win because their physique trumps everyone's, and it's a night and day difference, and it for sure shows that they are the winner. However, if you enjoy it, that feeds into win, place, or lose, you are the same person. So if you step on stage and you rinse the fuck out of that stage because you have earned the right to step on stage exhibiting your physique, and you are doing something so incredible that, let me tell you, many people would love to do, but so many people will not do. One, because of the hard work. Two, because they don't want to step on stage in a bikini or trunks or budgie smugglers. Three, they don't have the means to do it through finances or availability in their lifestyle to commit to it. And really, the list is going to go on there. And that feeds into it, right? If you enjoy your time on stage and you go up there and you think, I fucking smashed that, win, place, or lose, trust me when I say, and this, I've experienced it myself, you feel so much fulfillment because you have enjoyed your time on stage. And let's think about this objectively, guys. You're spending months getting ready for a show and you might be on stage for 5 or 10 minutes. So if you do not enjoy that, why are you doing it? If it's not something that you're getting something from, why are you doing it? Again, it's a question only you can answer. But that subjectivity, I personally believe that if an athlete walks on stage and they look like they want to be there and they enjoy it, they present their physique in a different way. When we then back that up with posing fitness and posing, mastering the art of presenting your physique, this is where we can see a night and day difference across competitors. Because if you step on stage and you don't know you're posing and you haven't got stage confidence and you do not feel you should be there, that will show. And it's something that you can work on within your prep, throughout your prep, and hopefully your coach is also offering opportunities and tools to facilitate this. Because this is not me saying that this should be natural to you, because trust me, it took me a long time to feel this level of confidence on stage. And it's important that you take time to do this, that you have a posing coach, that you have a coach that talks to you about your posing, that you facilitate posing practice. There is a lot of tools which I have and I share with my clients to help with your posing confidence, and it's important that is there. So when we look at the subjectivity, doing everything you can in the prep, for sure, that's cool, right? You get that done. However, are you doing everything above and beyond for when you step on stage? Because let's play it straight, right, guys? You can stick to a food plan, you can stick to a training plan, you can do steps. But what are you doing to facilitate when you step on stage? Or are you going to step on stage and think, holy shit, I haven't done my posing practice, I haven't got posing fitness, which is different to posing just doing your mandatories, and I don't have any stage presence. So it's something for sure to consider, because that is the cherry on top to you doing your best when you present your physique in a subjective sport. Now, when it comes to the subjectivity and how that can get in your head, nothing I say will make this easier per se, because again, you are all listening and you're all in different phases, you all have different experiences, and you also have different personal lives. So if you go on stage and you do not get a placing, you could potentially feel like it's you not being good enough, if you have past trauma or past experiences that have led to you feeling like that. So when you're then judged by a subjective judging panel, if you don't get a place in, that can feel like you are not good enough, for sure. And I've been there in my first few seasons. It's a terrible feeling, but I hadn't dealt with my own trauma, my own personal life, to facilitate it being okay if I don't place. So that is important as well from a mental health standpoint. Now, the third point, and this is the vibe, guys. If you're bodybuilding for the right reasons, then this should be a given, right? So when you prep, go all in. When you're in off season, go all in. Adopt the athlete mentality. So we all know, or most of us will know, that in a prep, we are sticking to the plan to the letter, and we are aiming for that physique to present on stage. In an off season, there is very different mixed opinions around that. So what I would say from a personal standpoint is allowing yourself time after the show as you enter a growth phase to reverse out and still keep that structure there. So it's very much an all-in approach. What you can find when you're in the reverse period is that you just think, maybe I don't really want to talk to my coach. I don't really want to do my plan. I'm fucking fed up of it. What I would say is, one, your coach needs to know what's going on, and we need that data. We need to know how you're feeling, and we need to be able to make plans moving forward. And that could be every few days, you might be having tweaks to your plan depending on how your physique is and how you are feeling. As you then start to move into an off season, it may be that you work with your coach and your intention is that you will socialize more. Maybe you have more meals out. Maybe you don't want to monitor your food as much. But I would say, from my personal standpoint, that we still want to strike a good balance. So for sure, we can incorporate social occasions, and that is a thing. However, ideally, we still want to have a structure in place. So generally speaking, when we are living this lifestyle, we are looking at foods in a very different way to what normal people would. So when we look at GI health and when we're going through different phases, this is where consistency comes in, this is where data comes in, and looking at the overriding, the bigger picture, as it were. So if we're incorporating off plan, are we generally speaking on the food plan for the rest of the week? Are we eating foods we know digest well? Are we doing our training? Are we hitting our fluid target? Cool. And then we have social occasions. So when I say go all in, that's what I mean. And I wanted to break it down like that because I'm not saying, guys, you have to follow a food plan to the letter 365 days of the year. If you want to, crack the fuck on if that's what you want to do. If you want to incorporate social occasions, work with your coach and crack the fuck on. Again, guys, this is your journey. And the go all in is unique to you because my all in is going to be different to your all in ordinarily. Maybe it's similar, but the athlete mentality is that progression mindset. What is progression for you? And when we say go all in, what does that mean? Because we can go all in, but not deal with things in our personal life that will potentially restrict your physique development path. So, in my mind, go all in is working out why you're doing this, enjoying your day-to-day bodybuilding lifestyle, accepting this is subjective, and working with a coach, or if you coach yourself, putting markers of progression in place and following to get to those markers and then progress again. So we go through this progression at all times through the multiple phases. And what is an athlete? They want to progress. They want to be the best sportsman possible. And this then transfers into what you view bodybuilding as. If going all into you is tracking your food every single day to the letter in all phases, that's your version of going all in. If it's, like I say, in an off season, doing some different things, but still following a food plan the rest of the week and then training, doing everything else you would do, that is your version of all in. But this is where we can often get caught in this comparison to others of that person does it like that. Should I do it like that? I don't have meals out, but do I want to have meals out? I have meals out, but should I have meals out? And you can see it's like this constant battle. So what I want to really dig down on this statement is going all in and adopting the athlete mentality is unique to you and it's your version. Fuck what anyone else thinks, to be honest, because like I've always said, and throughout this episode, I've said it, no one lives in your head and your version of going all in is unique to you. This also leads in nicely to point number 4. The choice to compete is exactly that, a choice. Now, for me, I've always felt that this is a choice. no matter what is required from a prep, I do not moan about it. I will express how I feel to Matt. Now I have a partner that wants me to express that. I didn't previously. It was all very much in my own head. But you don't have to do this, guys. This is the thing. And this is where it's going to have different opinions. You know, some preps are going to be more savage than others. Some of my preps have literally been, my feet are bleeding on the daily. I'm sleeping 2 hours a night. I'm training twice a day. It's a lot. However, I'm choosing to do that. There are certainly people that are in the world that wouldn't even have the choice to eat a meal. And we get the choice to do that. Yes, it's less food in a prep, but you're choosing to do that, guys. And although at times when it does get very hard and you're feeling every moment of this, that is still your choice, and nobody is holding a gun to your head to do that. If you accept that this is your choice and understand why you are doing this, trust me, you can enjoy cathartically what pain prep can bring. Now, sometimes, like I said earlier, some people prep and they may not reach that point of, you know, where I say my feet are bleeding, I'm sleeping 2 hours a night. Some people sleep 8 to 10 hours a night and they're in a pretty good spot. It's all person dependent. But what we don't want to do in an ideal world is talk negatively in our own head about what we're doing as bodybuilders. Because if we're talking negatively internally, what does it do? It builds resentment, and you forget that you're doing this for a choice, and all you want to do is for it to be over. You don't want to do it anymore. You resent it. That can also skew many, many other things, including your relationship with others and your relationship with yourself and food. If you're doing this and not taking ownership that this is a choice, you compete, you come into your reverse out, that can go a multitude of ways. And if you haven't done this for a good enough reason in your mind and realize that this is a choice and accepted that, yes, maybe you get through the prep, right? You diet. But what happens off the back of the show when suddenly, if you want to, you can have additional food? There's a plethora of things that can happen during that phase. Maybe you have distanced yourself from your other half and your friends, and then you realize they are not there anymore, or you feel you want to, you know, put more time into them through this period of time. All of these things that can occur, they do fall back to many of the things I've already spoken about. But when you choose to do this, when you get to that point where you are absolutely fucked, but you're peeled to the bone, you're loving life. Well, I'm talking for myself here, guys. I'm loving it. Give me the pain. And yes, it's warped and whatever else. But some of you will go, you guys will go, yeah, I get it. That's what I feel. Because I can't wait to step on stage. There ain't no way I'm doing 10 months of a prep, or my longest was 13 months, and stepping on stage and not enjoying it. Because to me, every single day in off season and prep is contributing to that. So there's no way I'm not going on stage and rinsing the shit out of that stage and realizing this is a choice, and every choice I've made that has led me here, I'm going in. And that is where we lead into that champion mindset and wanting to win, but accepting that maybe today isn't your day, but you went in and you fucking went for it. You worked for it. And that's what we want. And when we transfer this into and bleed this into point number 5, comparison is the thief of joy. Stay in your own lane and show sportsmanship. That, of course, on stage showing short sportsmanship. It's not for me to say you should do this, you shouldn't do that, or any such like. That is not my place. But personally for me, and that's all I can speak from, is that you've all worked hard to get there. And yes, it might be different degrees and what you've had to pour into it. But is that going to help if you don't show sportsmanship, how you feel after the show and how your experiences on that day? If you don't win and you feel like you should have, the judges ain't changing their mind, guys, and that's super, super important. And what we also want to realize is if you then exhibit a personality on stage, a behavior on stage that makes you feel like after on reflection, I was an absolute dickhead there, that show doesn't feel good for you. Whereas if you step on stage and you enjoy it, and if you do not place, you do not win, you still show sportsmanship, that is pride. And that is pride. You know, I've never done that. I've never changed personality or had a go at anyone on stage or what have you. I've had people start on me and groups of people saying things backstage and what have you when I've won competitions, and I've stood there proud and said the judge's decision is final. I won the competition. People can talk, guys. People can say whatever the fuck they want. However, if you've won the competition, it's the judge's decision. If you haven't, it's the judge's decision. Showing pride on stage and holding that, being an athlete, that is self-respect. Now, I know we've seen different behaviors on stage and various things go around social media and such like, but this is my personal thoughts on it. And it's super important to make that clear, because you will behave how you want to behave. What I will add to that is that I've spoken to many people that have reacted in a bad way on stage, and not one of them has felt happy with that. All they've done is feel incredibly unhappy, and they felt like a dickhead because the judge's decision's final, right? So all you're doing is making a spectacle of that you're a sore loser and that you haven't won the competition. And this is what I noticed from people that have thrown their toys out the pram, etc. And this is multiple people, guys. Two of them have spoken about it on podcasts, and they did not feel good. And they've said, I will never, ever behave like that again. So it's important to think about this when we talk about sportsmanship. Now, when we talk about comparison to others, and this for sure is something that's quite a well-received topic of mine. So when I look at my social media traction, when I get you guys reach out from listening to podcast episodes, comparison to others and external pressure for sure are two of my strong points that I like to talk about. I like to offer you tools and education and empowerment around that. And yes, I can say, don't compare to anyone else. Leave it at that. Is that helpful? Probably not. But what we always need to remember is that if you are doing everything in your power in every phase, what that comparison to others, what else can you do? So, of course, there's realms of natural versus assisted, and we will see differences in physiques. Saying that, there's some very sick natural physiques, but we may see that difference there from the PED use. But you can still only do what fits with your moral compass if you are assisted or if you're not. You can only do what you can do with your genetics. What you can control is your hard work and your work ethic. You go all in, like I said earlier on one of the points, prep is all in, off season is all in. You accept your genetics, you practice your posing, you build up that posing fitness, you work on your stage presence. All of these things, you hit your daily targets, you recover hard, you focus on your sleep as much as you can, you have your supplementation. All of these things, you cannot be someone else's physique. And this is what I find is important when we talk about comparison to others, because we can say mute people on social media if someone is causing you problems, which I would recommend for sure. Block people if you need to. If people are giving you shit and that's causing you to compare to others, again, ideally we're removing those people from our lives. However, when we talk about it logically, when we look at this from a clear mind, you are a unique genetic individual. We also all have different backgrounds in regards if we've played sport as a child, because that can often contribute to good physique responses in the bodybuilding space. So for me, it's like, okay, if I'm looking at other physiques, what is that doing for me? And for me personally, I look at physiques, as I told you, all the time. I also, of course, vet and look for podcast guests to bring onto the podcast. So I'm looking at physiques all day. Do I ever go, I wish I could be that person? Definitely not. And I hand on heart promise you that, because I'm never going to be that person. Do I look at a physique and go, fuck, that is inspiring? For sure. But what do? I then go and train, and it's always delts for me. Well, everywhere. But I really want a bigger delt cap. So for me, if I see a bikini athlete on Instagram and they've got good delts, when I train, I visualize that physique. It motivates me. It doesn't need to be a thief of joy. It can hype you up, you know? And this is super important for that mindset shift to go, that person's got a sick physique. Is there certain things I could do to go towards building on my example, my delts, if that's something I want to work on, my delt cap, rather than that person looks better than me, I'm a pile of shit. Because that is never ever going to serve you guys. And putting it literally, it will never serve you in the right way. But flipping it around for sure is an extension of comparison being a thief of joy and staying in your own lane. And this also rings true when we go to our next point. If you resent this lifestyle, be true to yourself and find a different focus. Again, it'd be easy for me to sit here and go, you shouldn't be a bodybuilder, you're not cut out for it. It would be easy for me to say to people, you shouldn't do this, because there's a lot involved. And it's important to then reflect on, if you resent doing this, is that feeding into, should you be doing this? Because it goes back to this choice, doesn't it? If you resent it, if all you're inundated with is, I don't want to do this, this is hard work, this takes too much of my time, I don't like the way I look, the list goes on, that's going to deteriorate your mental health over time. And that is going to potentially lead to all realms of mental health struggles if you're resenting it. And the way I like to frame it, and this is what I mentioned earlier, there's a difference between moaning and saying how hard something is. So if you're resenting it, you're more than likely going to be moaning inside your own head or at other people. Maybe you're taking it out on other people, you're pushing people away, they do not understand how hard it is, you're resenting it, so everything is feeling quite negative. If it's hard and you accept it's hard, because do you think it's going to be easy? Maybe ask yourself that question as well. But if you resent it, guess what? It's going to be so much fucking harder. Whereas if it's a choice and you feel grateful for that choice to do this, the resent is quickly removed. You know what it's like, guys, and a good way to give an example, when you're in a relationship and the person is all good and you're happy, and then they start doing things that piss you off. So let's give some fictitious examples. We've always got to bring a bit of humor if we can. So your partner leaves this dirty washing out. He never does the washing up. I'm not talking about Matt, by the way. He, I don't know, he does things when you watch TV, like makes noises or something, like continuously does a nervous cough. I don't know. I'm making things up, right? So these little things, sometimes you can build resent for your partner. Also, you can have friends that continuously let you down. They say they're going to meet up and they don't, or you message them, they don't message back. What does that do? That builds resentment. So very much like your bodybuilding journey, if your bodybuilding is pissing you off, what do? You don't want to spend time with your partner or your friends. So you don't want to spend time doing bodybuilding. Then when we transfer that into what's required from bodybuilding, guess what? Pretty much every hour of the day you're feeling negative, and that bleeds into your mental health, your personal life, and your success as a competitor, because progression requires hard fucking work. And if you don't want to do it, if you resent it, this is where I say, be true to yourself and find a different focus. There are so many options in the world of things you can commit to. Bodybuilding does not have to be the one. If you get into it, it's not right for you. If it's too much, because it's a lot of commitment, you've got to be true to yourself. And for sure, for me, fuck what everyone else thinks. It doesn't matter if you've told them you're going to do a show. It doesn't matter if people are saying, when is your show? Oh, you're not doing it anymore if you decide not to. Doesn't matter about any of that. They're not the ones stepping on stage when they don't really deep down want to. None of those people have the right to give you pressure to do something that you're not fully immersed in. And this is super, super important, because it's on you guys to make that decision and be true to yourself. And this requires honesty within. And all of what I've already spoken about all bleeds into that, being true to yourself and doing this for the right reasons. So that is my first 6 points. And so far you can see that they do overlap, they bleed into each other, and all of it aligns to essentially finding your why and enjoyment through being a bodybuilder. Now, my 7th point is, your coach provides a plan, it's on you to follow it. So this is, of course, super, super important. If you're working with a coach, they are collecting valuable data throughout all of the phases. And from my standpoint, I want to know as much as possible. And I understand that everyone chooses different coaches for different reasons. But I am the queen of data. I want to record everything as much as possible, because that helps facilitate my understanding to my clients' physique response, their preferences, their personality, and what we're doing in the multiple phases. Now, we can have a coach that delivers just a plan and you tick the boxes and you go through, and that's how it works. And for sure, there's a place for that. Some people respond well to that. However, for myself, I want to take this valuable data and record it and then align that with what is happening, check-in to check-in. So the reason I say it like that, guys, is for me personally, I like to, when we have a structure in place, work with each client as an individual. So as an example, one of my clients has 5 food plans for a 7-day week. She is a mum of 2. She was struggling with her relationship with food and not wanting to really prep food and make meals complicated, etc., etc. She wanted to fall back in love with the process. Now, what does that mean as a coach? It means me understanding what will facilitate her feeling good on a food plan. And that meant working out 5 different plans that she can rotate throughout a week. And I have lots of clients on multiple food plans. Yes, it takes time, but that allows adherence, and that allows me to go, okay, so my clients are following these food plans, and this is what is happening from a physique standpoint and an adherence standpoint. So when we look at this data being collected and what is happening, because we can often have this sort of different mindset in off season and prep, which I've already touched on. However, even in an off season, we are still looking at GI. We're looking at what foods are being consumed and then looking at the physique response. So even if off plan is in there, having an idea into what that off plan is, that is helpful and useful data. So did that sit well on digestion? How did you feel energy wise after in the next few days? How did training feel? How did your physique respond? All of those things come with communicating with your coach. And another relevant point is that if your coach is saying, right, I want to incorporate something like off plan in a phase where it's appropriate, and this is again my coaching style and coaches generally that I connect with and that I see my own coaching within theirs. This is not every coach, but having an idea and some guidelines in place allows us to know, okay, so is that off plan something that serves the athlete, the client? Cool. Okay, so if it is, that's something that could be a go-to if they enjoy it and they want to incorporate that for future off plans. Now, if you're being told we want to incorporate more food and have an off plan, if that is something that you're not comfortable with, you need to speak up. Also, if you are good with it and you enjoy it, that's a good thing, right? Because it's in the plan. So even if you have guidelines, so if I say to a client, I want you to have off plan, we're going to incorporate a portion of protein, around X amount of carbohydrates and some micronutrients. If they do that, do I need to know the exact weight of X, X, and X? Depending on the person, more than likely, no. But it's in the plan, you see? And this is the difference. If it's promoted that you have off plan and there's a reason for that, and you're working with a coach to incorporate this, then it's important that you do what is feeling right for you. But if it's not the right time, also speak up, tell your coach. Now, when we transfer this into the multiple phases, with regards to a prep, guys, if you're working with a coach, they are basing changes on you following a plan. If you're dicking around and you're not following the plan to the letter, you are doing a disservice to yourself. It's as simple as that. Now, in my mind, I can't understand why you wouldn't follow a plan if you've paid for a coach and you're going to step on stage. I don't get it. Now, that's not me saying if you listen and you do cheat on your diet and you don't follow your plan, that's your vibe, right? However, you can't expect to get the maximal results if you are not following the plan. Because how can your coach plan accordingly if the data you're giving is not correct? What I will add to that is, if you cheat on your diet, if things are not nailed, when you step on stage, and I can't speak from experience because I've never done this, are you going to feel good about that? Are you going to feel like you should be on that stage and you should be a competitor? When we then flip that round to if you do cheat on your diet, again, I cannot resonate because I've never done that. If you have, and it happens, speak to your coach. Tell them you're struggling. If you're having additional food, if you're missing training sessions, if you're not hitting your targets, don't say you are. That's what they are there for. Again, it's different for different coaches, but in my mind, a baseline due diligence as a coach is to be there if you are not following the plan. If there's a reason for it, it should be worked on and understood by your coach so you can move forward. If you do not say, and if you do not give over to your coach to say, I'm not following the plan, you are literally wasting your money and you are compromising your preparation for a competition. Because when we look at this, if you're doing things like refeeds when you're getting ready for a peak, everything has been geared towards that. So there's processes in place that you may or may not be aware of. So when you're looking at a refeed, there's a reason for that. When you're looking at a peak week, there's a reason everything is done how it is, because we are looking at a physique response that is favorable to the method that we are utilizing. So if you're not following the plan around that, that method may not be as effective. And then your coach, if they don't know, they're literally like, this is how it should go on paper. This is not how it's happened. What's happened here? You know, what has gone wrong? If you're saying I've stuck everything to the letter, it's not fair on your coach, but also it's a disservice to yourself for what you are doing this for. Why are you hiring a coach? Because you want them to guide you towards your goal, and that is super, super important. Now, I mentioned finances there, and the next point on the list, number 8, is not many of us get paid to compete. So if you don't enjoy it, ... So I've already spoken about enjoying this, right? But there's the element of not being paid to do this. So yes, some of us will earn money, but it was funny actually. Yesterday, literally yesterday, I was having a conversation with a guy. in the car park at my gym, and Matt had spoken to him one of the previous days, and this guy and his other half came up to me and he said, "I can't believe you've won a championship before." And I was like, "Eh?" I'm thinking, what? And Matt was there and he said, "Matt told me." And he looked me up and down, and so did his wife. "I can't believe you've won a bodybuilding show." And I was like, I'm thinking, am I meant to look a certain way? Am I meant to be a certain way? And then he said, "You don't really talk about it. Like, you're very humble." And I was like, okay, that's cool, because hopefully he's not looking at me thinking I don't look like a bodybuilder. But I was like, very much to what we're talking about today. I do this for me. And he was speaking about Miss Universe, when I did win Miss Universe, did I believe that was a possibility? No. It's still so surreal, and I don't need to tell people about it. I understand I talk about it in the podcast, perhaps on my social media at times, but that is to talk about the experience and give you insight into it and talk about my journey. However, I don't go up to people in the gym and say, "I've won Miss Universe." I don't even tell people I compete. I just talk to people at the gym as a person, back to who are you outside of it. If it's a conversation and we go down that route and people say, "What are you training for?" or whatever, I'll say, "I compete. I'm in off season at the moment, but I'm rehabbing my knee." That's about it from me, guys, because yeah, it's fucking epic, but I don't need to ram it down people's throats. It's not really how I vibe, and I like to just keep myself to myself if I can. And this feeds into the rest of the conversation where he said, "You don't mind me asking, do you? How much did you get paid for that?" And I was like, nothing. I paid to get there and compete, and all in all, it was about £4,000, and I did not have £4,000 at the time. However, I found it, as we do. But the point being there was he was quite shocked, and I think that sometimes think that maybe as bodybuilders we get paid, maybe you get sponsorship or various other things, but you're not necessarily being paid when you compete. Now, I've had guests on that have won some money. Romana and Sarah have both won competition money, but it's only really covered their travel to compete internationally, and it's not anything that's life-changing per se. And for sure, a lot of us won't get paid, but it can lead to other things. So for me, bodybuilding for 12 years, it's led to me becoming an online coach. It's led to me starting the podcast. And in turn, that earns you money, right? Because if you're coaching for a job, you're getting clients, and perhaps that is because they've seen what you've achieved in the sport. That validates it. It's social proof to your services, and people go, for me, I've climbed the ranks, I've competed for many years, and I work with clients already. Right, okay, I might choose Sarah as my coach. So in that respect, yes, for sure, we could earn money in the long run. However, most of us aren't paid to actually compete, and we're actually spending a lot of money on the food and the stuff that goes into the lifestyle. So this is where it's, if you're not enjoying it, even more so, are you sinking your finances into this? And if you're not enjoying it and it's not worth it for you, that leaves you in a difficult position. However, for myself, and I know some of you will relate, I would do anything and everything to commit to my bodybuilding from a financial standpoint. And I've always said this with coaching. For me, it's like a utility bill. So you just like your water bills and your heating bills come out, so does coaching. And I've always seen it as that, because that is my investment in myself. If I am not okay, then does it matter if I have electric and water? I don't know. That's just popped into my head. But for me, it means I'm okay, and that's what I want. And that's what I want to spend my money on. And the bodybuilding lifestyle, I would rather forego other things to be able to just eat my bodybuilding foods, have a gym membership, and do the things I need to do for my journey because I enjoy it. So it's that almost risk versus reward, right? And we can for sure find ourselves in tricky spots with finances, particularly after maybe a long prep, multiple shows. If you compete internationally, it all for sure clocks up. But if you're enjoying it, in my mind, it's like that money's worth it, right? Like when I competed at the Arnold's, it was like $3,000 just for that one competition, and that was in the UK. Bearing in mind it's not that much more to go to Miss Universe in Mexico. And it's like, but that was for me. That's what I want to do, and that's what I want to spend my money on because I enjoy it, and that is super important. Now, when we look at point number 9, so these two, number 9 and number 10, are super cool. Slightly, well, not slightly, but quite different to the points I've already raised. The first 8 points certainly feed into each other a lot, and so do the last two, but they are subjects that stand alone. So number 9 is PEDs don't replace hard work, they enhance it. So I touched on this already in regards to we've got natural and we've got assisted, which is the use of PEDs. Now, when we look on the face of it, a lot of the time it's going to present different physiques. However, as I mentioned already, there's some fucking wild natural physiques, and it's fucking sick. Now, if you make the decision to go down the route of utilizing PEDs, you'll know my thoughts on the podcast that this should be from an informed place. Now, this decision is a personal decision. What I recommend, and you would have heard this in this week's episode with Laura, Romana, and Sarah, is that if your ducks aren't in a line and you're adding in PEDs, not only are you just dicing with death per se, I can't remember what the analogy that Small But Mighty gave, but you know, it is like if you're not tracking the data of everything else, have we got room to add in performance enhancements if we're not already performing? So that's a relevant point when we look at PEDs. Also, are you sure you want to do this? Is this lifestyle definitely for you? Because that's certainly a decision I made when I went down the assisted route, is do I definitely want to continue doing this? Is this the right decision? Okay, yes, it is. I will gain the education. I'll get advice from a coach that I trust, and I will move into using PEDs. And I for sure noticed a big physique change and enhancement, 100%. And my doses are very, very low. And just from that change there, I noticed a big response to my physique, particularly reversing out and into an off season. I did get very lean in my last competition season, so of course that contributes. But I find that my body composition is more favorable in an off season compared to being natural. But back to the point of PEDs, right? So informed decision, educating yourself is super important. So although we can gain data and information from coaches, ideally you want to look this up yourself. If you're going to put this in your body, that's what I would advise. But it doesn't make up for a shit work ethic. Because if you are not nailing your plan, the PEDs, yes, you can still have effects for sure. You know, I know people that use them and they eat McDonald's all the time. If they want to do that, fine. But if you're utilizing PEDs for what we would label them as performance enhancing drugs, I would certainly recommend that you have the work ethic there and the commitment to bodybuilding to actually utilize PEDs what they are framed for, rather than hoping that they will be a band-aid to a lack of adherence and commitment to the cause. Now, the last one, and I've touched on this being a quite a strong point for me as a person in regards to podcasting and social media. It's certainly a talking point for me when I'm speaking to you guys or other people that follow me. And the last point is, you may lose friends along the way, and friends are quote unquote, but you will more than likely gain new ones. So external conflict and pressure. Now, when we look at this from a life standpoint, ordinarily, all of us are going to face some level of conflict or disruption, or, you know, maybe not aligning with other people in life. Now, as I've already touched on, what I view as friends, and then we have acquaintances, we have maybe best friends, we have a close circle. So friends is going to mean different things to different people. There is a lot of superficial friendships that happen in people's lives because it is what it is, right? You know, when I was winning competitions, I had loads of friends. But where are they now? And people follow success. This is what I will say. You will get people, if you become successful in bodybuilding, that do want to cling on to that success and be associated with you because, of course, you're a champion bodybuilder, you're a pro bodybuilder. People think it's cool, and it is. However, being able to learn and understand it for what it is, because when we talk about loss of friends, this might not even be that you've broke ties with someone close. It could be you experience traction and friendships that are superficial on the lead up to a show. You know, you get a lot of yes men and people going, oh my God, you've got this and all that. Sometimes after the show, if you don't win, if you don't place, you can have people that slip away and you don't hear from them again. Or you know, someone's prepping for a show and they seek support in you if you're a fellow bodybuilder, maybe after their show, they don't speak to you. This isn't because you've done something wrong. This is on them, unless you have done something wrong. But I'm going to make the assumption that you're all good. And it's like, I can't understand, you know, in a phase of bodybuilding for them or for you, we were tight, we were best friends. Suddenly, they've disappeared. That is what happens in life. People will lean on you and they will suck you for your energy. They will also lean on you for your success and be looking to affiliate with you. And that's the two separate sides of the coin. If you lose contact with people around these types of scenarios, as I said, that's not on you and it can be fucking brutal, you know. I've bought into people a lot in my life, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm immune to it and that I don't give a shit. It fucking really hurts, and it's really, really hard when, for whatever reason, you lose contact with someone, particularly if you feel that it was a bit unjust and it wasn't really something you had done. Maybe you don't get a chance to explain it, what have you. It's hard. It is hard. What I found personally is that it makes me even more intentional into the relationships I do have. And I am very, very intentional. If I love you, you know about it. And yes, I might wear my heart on my sleeve sometimes, but I believe in giving people chances. I believe in raising people up. But I also believe with being objective and honest, you find true friendships. I've got friends now that I've had to be brutally honest with because they've done something that doesn't fit normally with their value set, or they've pissed me off, and they're still my friends. Because I'm not here to be one of those yes men. I'm here to be an actual true friend, and that's super, super important. Now, also, I understand it can be hard to sometimes find this. What I would recommend that you work out what is important to you and your moral compass, and you act with authenticity, because that radiates and that attracts like on like. And an extension of this, guys, we get it wrong. I've got it wrong many times and I kick myself and I think, bloody hell, you know, I was really invested in that person. Why has this happened? You know, all I've done is be myself. But what I would say is I've realized sometimes being myself does not fit other people's narrative, because I'm not here to be a cheerleader if someone's doing something that is away from what they normally would do or is immoral, because it's not, I'm not happy to be around that. So I will say, I have lost friendships through that. Fine, you know, we've got to sit with that. Yes, it's brutal, but it is worth it because you are being true to yourself and you're also reminding them of what true is for them, and that's super important. Now, if you lose friends along the way that resent your bodybuilding, that give you shit for being a bodybuilder, do you have to do this, do you have to eat this, the common things that we come across as bodybuilders, then are they your friend anyway if they're not supporting this? Like, it literally makes no sense that they wouldn't get behind you to do this. What we do want to consider is what you are labeling this as. So everything I've said today, are you saying to external people, this is my choice, I'm absolutely loving this, it's fucking hard, but it's so sick? Or are you going, I've got no money, I fucking hate this, it's so hard, I don't know how I'm going to do this? That then depicts what that person views as what you're doing. And that can cause problems when you then say, but I'm doing it anyway. They don't understand, they're getting mixed messages and it pushes them away from you. That can cause you to lose friends as well. So the different ways to look at this. If it's through the point of someone just being an all-round dickhead, then yes, I can say move on. And for sure, that is the overriding factor. However, it's realizing that actually this sport could bring you new friends that are on a similar thought process, a similar wavelength, on a different frequency, because you both get what you're doing. And some of my best friends are competitors that I've met at shows, and it's so cool, like, to have these relationships, and they know I love hard and they accept me for that. Sometimes too hard, but maybe not. However, it's being true to myself, and I want to show someone what they mean to me. It's not chatting shit. I'm saying you are a good friend to me. This means everything. You get me, you understand me, you're there when I need you, and vice versa. And that is what I will always promote, and that is what you can gain from friendships. I'll finish it as well with the thought process to maybe right now you're not in a spot where you have many friends and you're doing your own thing with the bodybuilding. So you remember at the start, I said this can be a very solo endeavor. If that's your choice and you would prefer that right now, if you've got other stuff going on or you're knee deep in a prep, if you're happy with what you're doing, no one's got the right to tell you should have X amount of friends or you should be doing this, socializing XYZ. That's your decision. But what I will say is, if your decisions are making you happy, you are content, and you are making the choices that suit you, nobody has the right to impact that in a negative way. So I hope, of course, guys, that you've enjoyed this episode. We've been on quite the journey today. As always, I really honestly love it when people share the podcast on their stories. It really helps me to know that I'm doing my job. You know, my promise to you is to always offer empowerment, education, and resonation. And I do this because I have a passion to help others and to support you where I can. When any of you message me, when my inbox messages come in and it's about the podcast, honestly, it really does mean the world to me for sure. And hopefully, if you enjoyed it and you get a chance, you will give it a share on your stories, or always message me if you want to talk about anything that I've mentioned in any of the podcasts. If you want to talk about my coaching, if you have any questions about anything, please do reach out. Instagram is normally the best place. I've got a link in my bio, and also I will put the Instagram handle for me in the podcast description. So until next time, guys, thank you for listening, and I will speak to you soon. Hey!